horrifying experience during quarantine. I was upstairs in my room one night playing video games, with the volume really loud when I thought I heard noises coming from downstairs. I muted the TV and listened closer. Nothing. I resumed playing the game for another hour when I heard it again, only louder. I was sure I heard it this time and was a little freaked out. To assure myself, I went downstairs to the basement, where I thought I heard the noise coming from. As soon as I opened the basement door, I was hit with a cold breeze. I went downstairs and saw the window wide open. I was 100% sure I had closed and locked all the windows in the house. I was ready to make a run for it when something stopped me. I turned around and for the first time noticed the closet door was slightly cracked open. I stood for what seemed like 30 minutes in front of that door debating whether I should open it. I moved closer and put my hand on the doorknob. All of a sudden, I heard a creepy crackle coming from inside the closet. I have never run faster up a flight of stairs before. I locked the door and called the cops, who had an unusually fast response time. They came in and searched the house, and not even 5 minutes into their search I heard a gunshot from downstairs. A few minutes later they came out with a deranged looking man, probably homeless. They put him in the back of the car and told me they had opened the door and the man was holding a gun, shot at them and missed. He luckily missed and the cops disarmed him and arrested him. The scariest part was how close I was to opening that door and likely being murdered. The time where I was home alone for the weekend. Scary story. It was a Saturday night, the time was 11:47 AM and I was watching a movie on TV in the living room. Movie I was watching was Iron Man 3. I also live in the middle of nowhere. At that time I was 15 years old. I was just sitting there just watching the movie, and then all of a sudden the power goes out. I thought to myself, well, the power's out. It will come back on shortly. Now I was sitting in the chair in the living room and it's dark. Then I hear a door open in the hallway and I realize that I'm sitting in a chair and the hallway is behind me. I didn't look behind me because I thought it was nothing. Then I hear footsteps behind me and they're coming towards me. I look behind me, but I don't have a flashlight and my phone is in my room. All that I can see is the dark in the hallway, but the footsteps stop moving. So now I'm sitting there looking at a pitch black hallway and I don't know what is standing there in the hallway. Then, another door opens in the hallway and now I'm thinking that someone has broken into my house and is just searching the house, but I don't hear any footsteps. Now I'm freaking out because all I'm doing is staring at the dark hallway and the power hasn't came on. I was terrified because if the power does come on, I'll be able to see if there is someone or something in the hallway. I don't know if it's a person or something else. Then I hear the footsteps again and they're coming towards me, but faster, and the footsteps were getting louder. I jumped back out of my chair onto the floor and then the power came back on. I stand up and look at the hallway and there was nothing there. My heart is pounding and I am in fear right now. I also see the two doors that opened at the end of the hallway. I remember them being close and the only two doors that opened was my little brother's door and the bathroom door. Then I ran straight to my room, locked the door, and I never came out. I also didn't sleep that night as well. A new house. A new start. I finally moved into my new place yesterday, which the lockdown has made incredibly hard. I knew I had to be up early for work, so I promised myself an early night. I got into bed around 9 PM and when my head hit the pillow I was out like a light. I was awoken at about 1:30 AM by some banging outside. Peering out of my window, I noticed my neighbor letting his dog out and bringing his bin back in. I thought it was weird, but whatever. Checking the time, I thought I was lucky, a couple of hours of more sleep. I woke up at about 2:55 AM, 5 minutes before my alarm, but I noticed my bed felt as if someone was sat on it. I rolled over to find a young woman sitting on the side of the bed. Shocked and scared, I didn't really know what to do, apart from jumping out of bed and say, "What the freak?" At that point, her head turned, her eyes were rolled up into the back of her head, her cheeks were torn open. She let out a low growl and then whispered, "I want your soul." At this point, I was so scared I couldn't move. She began to turn in the most grotesque way. Her body was distorted as she began to crawl across the bed. I mustered the courage to head for the door, closing it behind me, thinking it's not going to do anything, but I felt safer. I ran to the front door, fumbling with my keys and dropping them, before a demonic-like blood-curdling scream came from behind my bedroom door, and then nothing, just silence. When I had managed to calm down, I opened the door to find nothing. At this moment, I'm not sure if what I saw was real or just a sleep-deprived vision. All I hope is I never see her again.
I was a babysitter for a little girl. One night I was babysitting my mom's friend's daughter, and it was 9:30. Almost bedtime, I say to Emma, who whined then said, "I want ice cream." So this was the last night I was going to babysit Emma for a long while, so I said, "Okay fine, but go to sleep right after." She agreed, then told me the ice cream was in the basement, so I was like, "Oh, I freaking hate that." Emma then yelled at me for swearing. So as I'm about to go down into the basement, I try to turn on the light, and it doesn't turn on. Of course the light doesn't turn on. I whisper, loudly as I'm walking down the stairs. I grab the vanilla ice cream and run upstairs, because I don't like the dark, even though that there is a window in the basement. After I got the ice cream, Emma screamed at me because I forgot the strawberry syrup, so I said, "And is the syrup in the basement?" And Emma said yup, with the biggest smile on her face, so I was like, "Of course it is," with the most straight face in the world. I go back downstairs and try to find the stupid strawberry syrup, but then, I check out the window, and I see something at the corner of my eye. It was a black figure running inside the house. After I see that, I hear Emma scream before it was dead silent. So I run upstairs and see Emma's severed head in her own ice cream. I called the cops and they investigated me as they checked out the house. One of them asked where I was at the time of the murder. I said I was in the basement, and I saw the man run into the house through the window. So then the police officer checked the basement, then came back up almost immediately after and asked, "So how did you see the man?" I said, "Through the basement window." What he said next still scares me to this very day. There's no basement window, there is only a mirror. Taxi terror. True story. When I was in my early 20s, I went out to a nightclub for my friend's birthday. The night was bad from the start. My friend disappeared on me early in the piece, leaving me with some of her male friends who I'd only just met. I didn't have a boyfriend, so I felt uneasy being left these guys that I didn't even know. After some time hanging out with them, I noticed they were both acting very strange. I wasn't sure why. One of them started accusing me of being jealous, and saying that I said things I hadn't said, so I just wanted to find my friend or leave. I went looking for her and still couldn't find her. The music was too loud for us to hear each other on the phone, and our messages to each other became a wild goose chase. I started to think she is purposely stuffing me around, so I ended up deciding to leave. I texted her to let her know, and went outside to hail a taxi. The cab driver promptly arrived at the club entrance. I hopped in, feeling pretty crap about the night I had. I felt very uncomfortable with this driver. As soon as I got in, I just got bad vibes for some reason. I chalked it up to my own disappointment of how the night panned out, and I needed to get home, so I brushed this feeling aside, and gave my address. Sitting in the front seat in silence, I just wanted to hurry up and get home. He was using GPS, so I didn't need to give directions. He made some small talk like, "How was your night? Did you have fun?" It was weirding me out, because it was as if he knew I had a horrible time, and was mocking me. I replied it was all right, not wanting to talk about it. The next thing I remember is waking up in the cab, still miles away from home, and not too far from the nightclub, on a bridge that wasn't on the route back. I looked at the meter, and it was already up to $50. This fare should have got me home already. Angry, he took advantage of the fact I dozed off. I queried this, and told the driver he will have to stop the meter as all I have is $50, and that should have been enough to cover my fare. You could cut the tension with a knife. He was livid. I confronted him. He stopped the meter, and said, "Well, I'll pull over, and you can get out here then." I told him he cannot pull over on this bridge. It doesn't have a service lane, and is illegal to stop on. That particular bridge has a barriers due to the high numbers of suicides. I asked why he even went this way. He said he followed the GPS. I expressed how unfair this was, and that I should have been home by now. He continued driving, We didn't speak for the remainder of the trip. I could tell he was furious, and to be honest, so was I. When we arrived at my house, he had this evil look in his eyes. As we pulled up, I handed over my debit card to pay. He glared at me as he snatched the card from my hand. Then I was struck with a horrifying thought. This man now has my full name and address. Nervously, I glanced over at his cab ID on the dashboard. To my surprise, the picture bared no resemblance to the man I was sitting next to. I suddenly became extremely scared. As some sort of insurance, I decided to ask him to see his ID since he has my name and address. I must admit, this definitely wasn't the smartest idea I've had. I'll never forget that evil look in his eyes as he said, "You wanna know who I am? I'll show you who I am," and slammed the gas. I went into full panic, and as he went to swerve around the corner, speeding away from my place, I opened the car door ready to roll. Luckily he had to slow down, or the door would have hit a pole. I jumped out and bolted back to my house in a state of sheer terror. I don't know what he had planned for me, but it certainly wasn't good. He drove away, and I went in and called the police crying. They did nothing, but I kept his cab number written down in my wallet just in case. Many years have passed since that horrible night. I've tried to put it behind me, and have avoided cabs ever since. The reason I decided to share this story is because the other day I was walking in the city, and what I saw brought me right back to that night. I pulled out the crinkled paper that I've carried with me all these years. It was him. He is still out there driving cabs. I'm sharing this a warning to anyone who will listen. Be careful when you get into a taxi or Uber. You never really know whose car you're getting into.